Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Ross. I am an admissions counselor here at North Greenville, and you are tuning in to our last edition of Monthly Moments with Dr. Fant. Dr. Fant, how are you doing today?
Hey, doing well.
Good.
Summer's going quickly, eh?
Ooh, it has blown by, hasn't it? Goodness.
It's crazy.
But for the next 30 minutes, we're going to be talking with Dr. Fant, just some questions that have been sent in through our social medias or students who are currently working here on campus. But please feel free to send us any questions that you might have. We'd love to throw those in at the end if we have some extra time. But starting out, Dr. Fant, we are a little over 20 days out of having students move back onto campus. What are you most excited about?
I'm most excited about noise. So during the pandemic, when we didn't have students around, it was too stinking quiet. And it's been good to have summer campers this year. We've capped that at about 50% of the normal attendance, but they've made a lot of noise, and that's been good to have them. But wow, when we had orientation the other day, it was so great to see students out running around. And we just can't wait to walk around at night and hear all that noise up on the hill from the house we get to live in. And just to see people coming together and making new friends, seeing old friends, kind of getting into the habit and the rituals of college life. Man, it's just a few weeks away, and I cannot wait.
Absolutely. That is one of the most beautiful things about this campus is the community that we have. Going to football games, hanging out in the cafeteria together. There's just something that's been missing that I'm excited to have back on this campus.
Yes. You know, I guess the definition of normal after the pandemic will have changed somewhat, but there are certainly rhythms that go with college life of everybody coming together, again, making new friends, seeing old friends. There's something about going to class that first week and seeing who's in your classes and so forth, and getting that rhythm of study, as well as all the social things that happen at the traditional part of the university. Man, there's just nothing like it. I was texting with a friend this week and was recounting to him something that happened in my dorm 40 years ago this fall. And I was just thinking about that 40 years later, I'm still telling those stories because they were a part of who made me who I am. And seeing that happen in live time is pretty cool. One of the things that's interesting about being a faculty member, or especially as a president, is as far as the regular campus, the traditional campus goes, the students are always 18 to 22. You know, after they graduate, they're replaced by an 18-year-old. And so we have that the age segment that's there where we get to repeatedly watch the joys of the new experience, the grizzled old sophomores who come back and so forth. But to watch that discovery that happens at a place like this, where you have a faculty member who's mentoring you or discipling you, and all of a sudden light goes off and you realize there's something in your life you hadn't noticed before, or a coach has a special relationship with you, and all of a sudden you begin to have that epiphany, or special friends. There's nothing quite like, especially those that are in dorms, there's nothing quite like those friendships that come out of those dorms. And I get to watch that every year, year in, year out. And it's a real blessing to see all those things happen so constantly.
Absolutely. No, it is a really sweet time, a very unique time in people's lives that is great to be a part of past those 4 years that we each had at different universities. But I received a question from a current student here. Dr. Fant, if you could go back in time and talk to 18 to 21-year-old Dr. Fant, what piece of advice would you give him to help him be more successful and enjoy time in college more?
Probably don't dye your hair orange and grow a rat tail. That was probably a bad choice I made for a while there.
Take note of that.
There are no photos. We did not do photos back then. Daguerreotypes, but not photos. But in all seriousness, realize that you have an unusual opportunity. I think some people take college for granted. And as I love to tell students, there are not millions of people who would like to come to a college like this. There are not tens of millions, there are billions of people on the planet that would do anything, literally, to have the opportunity to come study at a university, to have the opportunity to have these kinds of friendships, to have these learning experiences, to have the spiritual growth opportunities. And so I tell people, don't take it for granted. It really is an unusual time. And I'll tell you also what I told my kids, that this is the only time in your life when you have an unusual amount of liberty to learn about yourself. And that comes by exposing yourself to different people and different experiences, different ideas, and so forth. But doing that in the framework of maintaining and consistently working on your relationship with God, keeping Christ at the center of things, and letting the other things be satellites around that main thing. That sets you up for a really awesome experience when you head off to college.
Absolutely. Now, what should every college student bring to their dorm room?
Well, of course, I'll say you need to bring your Bible. You need to bring snacks.
Obviously.
You need to bring, I think one of the things that sometimes people miss is you need to bring a servant's heart with you. There's a cool thing that can happen, especially in dorms, when you are looking not for other people to help you, but for you to help them, for you to serve them. When you've got roommates, suite mates, dorm mates, if you're looking for ways to provide hospitality to them and figure out, okay, what do they need? What can I do to reach out to them? You'll be amazed at what comes back in your direction from that experience. And I think that's a good part of it, is just that servant's heart. Had a student one time, long time ago, who was at another university, a very secular university. And she was complaining about one of her faculty members who was just after her. And I said, well, how often are you praying for that faculty member? And she said, well, why would I pray for him? He's an opponent, And I said, well, because I think we're supposed to do that, And so just that idea of getting into that rhythm and that habit of serving others, praying for others, and then seeing how God moves in your heart and opens up opportunities. It's a sweet season to be able to do all those kinds of things.
Absolutely. And college is full of so many doors to make those lifelong friendships and personal experience. I lived down the hall from a guy who had a drawer full of snacks. He didn't put socks in there. It was just oatmeal cream pies and honey buns. And I made it an effort that he was going to be my best friend my freshman year. And it just opened up the door. And for a lot of incoming students and even returning students, I think, like you said, coming in with that servant heart, looking to serve those on your hall or in your house or whatever, it can really open the door to some lifelong friendships.
I'll tell you a funny story. So Lamont Sullivan is our alumni director and does an incredible job. But it's hilarious going anywhere with him, because it doesn't make restaurant, hotel, wherever. We can be in another city and it's always Lamont and it's people coming up, and they all have a story about how he encouraged them, or he mentored them, or he brought snacks, or whatever the case may be. And I know that you can multiply people like Lamont out so many different times from a place like this. And then you can multiply that out with staff members, with faculty members, with coaches, with community people that come and plug in at the university as volunteers and so forth. And it's a very unique, very special place.
No, I totally agree. Changing perspective a little bit, what advice would you give to parents? Some are sending off their first baby to college, and this is a brand new thing, and some, this is the last baby and this is a very new thing. What advice would you give to these families?
Man, it's a neat time, the next 20 days before drop-off day or whatever. Do a couple of things that'll be memories that y'all go back to. But my wife and I have twins, and so we went from 2 to 0 all at one time. And I will say that the day that we dropped them off was a bittersweet day, in that we went to Cracker Barrel and the bill was less than $20. That was muy bueno. But then we got in the house, and the house was very quiet, and the rooms were very neat, which was not necessarily always the case. And so I tell parents, this is a neat season as you're beginning to spin babies out of the nest, and the nest returns to, especially those of you who are married. You have suddenly the opportunity to get to know each other again and all. It's my wife and I say that frequently, that it's been one of the joys of being empty nesters, is all of a sudden we remember, we go back and we think about the things from early in our marriage, but we also think about how far we've come and things we've been through. And this is a neat opportunity for that as well. My favorite story to tell on parents, I've told this a number of times, but I'll tell it again here since we have a moment, is I had a student 25 years ago. A student came to my office in tears and said, my parents are dead. And I said, what on earth? And she said, I've been trying to call them for almost a week and nobody's picking up the phone and the neighbors haven't seen them and everything. And so we started working trying to find out. The parents had gone on a cruise to Mexico and had not told the kids. And so they were on a second honeymoon, and they didn't want the kids to know that they were on a second honeymoon. So they weren't dead. They were in Mexico canoodling.
Oh, my.
So, is that okay to say on this? So
hey, it's monthly moment. Who knows what's going to happen? I like it. No, that's great, and I think that is a really sweet opportunity. Me and my wife are definitely on the opposite end of that spectrum. Yeah. We haven't had kids, but I could imagine
store them up, man. Store up the memories.
Absolutely doing that, and then we're already looking forward to there's going to be a time in our life where we'll be empty nesters, like I guess we're empty nesters now, but like to have that time again is just a really sweet time in marriage. Well, that's great. So, with rules and regulations kind of changing here on campus, what can students look forward to in terms of activities? What are we going to have going on this upcoming year?
Well, obviously we're paying attention to the news and we're paying attention to all the things related to the pandemic and all. But we've been blessed in the upstate. We're in a rural location. And so that does allow us to have a little bit more liberty in some things. And so we do anticipate we'll be back to a full athletic schedule. We anticipate we'll be back to all of our cultural events and chapel with a few small modifications and so forth. Again, we're gonna continue to watch what all goes on and all. But I think again there's a level of intentionality that comes out of especially campus ministry student engagement where they're trying to intentionally help students to build out relationships quickly. So I think we'll see that for commuters. We're looking for more opportunities to help commuters connect into the life of the community and so forth. We have a killer chapel speaker list that we're working on.
That's great.
We're getting really close to having that finished out for not just the semester but the whole year, and really excited about that. Bruce Frank from Biltmore Baptist in Asheville, what a great speaker and preacher. He's going to be doing our Ignite conference, which is kind of the opening chapel sessions, and so you'll see a lot of that. But again, we've also been doing a lot of renovations on campus, and so you'll see a lot of the dorms have been freshened up. We're adding additional gathering spaces. For the returning students, Kraft Hemp Hill's lobby has been completely reworked into a lounge space. We've got two other areas that we're working on that right now we've got some supply chain issues, but we're trying to get them so that we can really beef that up and have a lot more hang space for students.
That's great.
Where they can go with their friends and do things. And we've got some other little tricks up our sleeve. The supply chain has really impacted a lot of different things, and we had a lot of projects at the beginning of the summer that we had funded and we had put into the queue that were just running, frankly, into supply chain issues. So probably as the year goes on, we'll see things pop in, especially like maybe after Labor Day or after fall break, Thanksgiving break, and then Christmas break. We'll have some more things that'll drop in, but I think students will be excited about that. We have about 15 new faculty members joining us.
Wow.
And they're coming from all over the country. Many of them are experienced faculty members who are looking to be at a Christian college where they could be unapologetic about their faith. And we're really pumped about that. And so they're going to bring some great fresh blood. Of course, we've got a lot of longtime people that'll continue on with us and everything. But we're really pumped about the new people that are joining us, new spaces, new opportunities, new programs. And we think that's going to be a good year.
Absolutely. And one of the jewels that you kind of hit on that I think a lot of people overlook is every Thursday we do a commuter lunch. We have local churches more often than not bring in lunch for our commuting students for free, which is really
free
unique.
Food, college students.
And that is just hard to beat. Whether it's pizza or baked spaghetti or baked goods, I think it just speaks partially to the effort North Greenville makes to connecting students, whether they're residential or commuters, as well as how much our community wants to take care of North Greenville students as well. But no, that's great. And kind of hitting on food, can you shed a little light on what students can be expecting this upcoming fall and spring in light of meal plans and food and, what can we be looking forward to?
Yeah, it's one of the number one questions that we get are related to things like meal plans and food options. We've had Einstein's, but it's been in dry dock because of the pandemic and so forth. Again, we had some things we're working on that the supply chain has really kind of put the brakes on right now. But those of you that have gone into restaurants know there are some issues related to trying to find staffing and things like that. And so we want to make sure that the opportunities we have are done well. Our longtime partners, Aramark, have been meeting with us a lot, and they're looking at some things they can do to try to help us out and so forth. So this year will probably be a transitional year, but we're looking at some additional things we can do in the future. That next year, that we're coming out from under some really long-term contract obligations that will give us an opportunity to renegotiate and look at some things. They've been great to work with during the pandemic, and so we're really hopeful and optimistic that maybe even as the year goes on, we'll see some other things. We don't anticipate that Einstein's will be open again in the fall, but we have something else that we're working on that may be able to backfill that pretty soon. That will be good. And same thing with like meal contracts and other. Sometimes students we do some healthy options, but students would like a more robust healthy option thing. We're working on some things with that as well.
No, absolutely. And I think we're really blessed. Obviously, on campus, we have a variety of options when it comes to, the cafeteria that has an international section. It has a salad bar. It has comfort food. We have Papa John's connected to campus. We have Chick-fil-A connected to campus, but we're also just in an amazing location.
Well, and hey, I'll add this as well. Helen Cox, who's our food service manager, is wonderful. She loves students. She's a vegan, and so she's very sensitive to the students that have vegan preferences and principles and all. And so one of the things I encourage students a lot is find Miss Helen and chat with her if you have concerns. She'll be more than happy to do anything that's in her power to make a change. And sometimes we do have students who will make a suggestion or something they've heard about at another school, and they can go kind of check into that. And they've been able to do some of those things here the last few years. And so Helen is wonderful to work with. She's a fantastic member of the community. All of our food service people, students, if you haven't gotten to know the food service people, get to know them, chat with them when you're in line, because we have some phenomenal, just sweet, gentle people who work there. And good friends, good people make the food taste that much better. So.
Absolutely, no, it is.
And Fried Chicken Wednesdays. So.
Oh my goodness! Like, how could you not think about Fried Chicken Wednesday? But no, it is really sweet how whether you're faculty or a student or work in the food service department, we are a big family, and I think there is a sense of, like Miss Helen, great example, taking care of students. I think at a lot of schools that would kind of get brushed under the rug. It's hard to cater for 100,000 students, but here we're a tight, connected group, and it is really sweet to see someone like that taking care of students. I think that's really unique about North Greenville. Well, I haven't had any more questions come in, but Dr. Fant, I want to give you an opportunity. Like I said, a little over 20 days out. What words of encouragement or advice or anything you like to say to incoming students?
Yeah, well, how about if I share this? So this is my 5th year at the university. The first year I was here, our theme word for the year was define. That was our 125th anniversary. And so we were thinking about where we had been, where we're going, what our values are, what our mission is, how to double down on that. So we spent a year working on defining. The next year was aligning. And so we were trying to make sure we had everything aligned under the mission, equipping transformational leaders for church and society. And so we spent a lot of time working on that and kind of doing some infrastructure things, working on the personnel side. The next year was align. So define, refine, align. Align was tweaking, fine-tuning everything that was there. That's when COVID hit. So we pivoted from fine-tuning refine to the refiner's fire as the pandemic hit in the spring, and watching things we had worked on really begin to have value for the community. Coming out of the pandemic, the word was, that was last year, the word was accelerate. This year's actually accelerate too, because we're seeing a momentum shift toward the university. We have, I believe, our highest number of active deposits we've had in 3 or 4 years. We've already exceeded last year's fundraising this year in 6 weeks. So 52 weeks last year, 6 weeks this year, we've exceeded our fundraising for last year. And so we're seeing donors come in, and frankly, we'll have some announcements in the next few days about some scholarships that are going to begin in fall of 22. For those of you who are prospective students for fall of 22, start watching that website. Sometime, it'll probably be about 2 or 3 weeks, but I could at least drop that now that we've received a very substantial gift from a group that's asked to remain anonymous. But that is also adding momentum in what we're doing with programs and everything. So all of that is a part of that accelerate. And then the word for next year, for fall of 22, is going to be celebrate. We're going to think about ways to celebrate how God has brought us through the pandemic, how God has been so faithful with the university then for 130 years, because we'll be at the 130th at that time. And we'll just think through ways how we can celebrate, just what God has done in our midst, and anticipate what God is doing on the other side of that celebration. And so I think there's going to be a lot of fun things coming up here in the next few years. It's a great place to be. It's a great time to be here. And I just think that, we're going to look back. I always have this picture of myself on the rocking chair on the front porch when I retire, thinking back. And I think this arc of years here, when I'm in that rocking chair one day, I'm thinking those are going to be years that I'm going to smile as I think about them, because God's doing pretty cool things around here, and it's humbling to be a part of all that.
Absolutely. No, the Lord's been extremely faithful, and the future is definitely bright for North Greenville. Absolutely. Well, Dr. Fant, I really appreciate your time, and everyone viewing, I appreciate you logging in. We're super excited for everyone returning here in just a couple of weeks, and this has been your last monthly moment with Dr. Fant.
We'll do it again sometime, though.